Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to this webinar on behalf of the TEFL Org. My name is Carl. I'm an English as a foreign language teacher. I'm also a teacher trainer, and I'm an English as a foreign language examiner. I work out of my office here in Northern Ireland, but I have been lucky enough to have taught English as a foreign language in many countries around the world over the last 20 years. So if that's the kind of thing that you're into, kind of thing you're interested in doing, or maybe you're already doing, then hopefully this webinar will be useful for you. We do these webinars every week, pretty much. Sometimes we have breaks, but generally every week, one of these goes out live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, as this one is now going on live. So basically, if you have any questions about teaching English as a foreign language, please put them in the chat box wherever you're watching this, and they come up on my screen. As I said, this is live, so the more questions we get in, the more I can answer them. Today's topic is about how to plan online lessons. So if this is the sort of thing that you're into, then hopefully you will find this useful. Please do let me know where you are in the world. I can see some people saying hello already. As I said, I'm in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I do face-to-face classes here. I do online classes here. I also do some work in the Republic of Ireland, which is just a short drive down the road there. And I do a bit of face-to-face stuff in England as well a few times of the year. But the rest of my life is spent online, teaching people from around the world, speaking to people from around the world, and doing a lot of teacher training, either face-to-face, but also online. Right, so let me get into this a bit. So I don't know whether the people watching, I can see some people saying hello. Charles, hi in Chicago. David's in Lincolnshire. Raminder's in London. Linda's in Texas. We've got someone in from Canada. Someone from Manchester who's saying it's very sunny. Yes, in Northern Ireland today it is very sunny as well. Right, so thanks for saying hello there. Any questions, please do put it in the chat. Right, how to plan online lessons. So first of all, you might already have your TEFL certificate, your 120-hour TEFL certificate. And if you've done one of those, like we offer here at TEFL.org, if you've done one of those or you've done it with another company, hopefully they have shown you the stages of, for example, a grammar lesson, the stages of a skills lesson. Hopefully those sort of things you're aware of. If you're not, if you go and do a 120-hour certificate, then they will teach you that. And basically, online lessons have a similar theory to face-to-face lessons, because the majority of teacher training courses teach for face-to-face classes, because that's still the number one way of teaching. But online has been growing and is still growing right now. So how are online lessons different from face-to-face ones? So there is obviously, because of the nature of being online, more focus on tech. And part of the issue with the focus on tech is you have to keep the engagement with the students through using the tech. Now, when you're face-to-face, it might be a little bit easier. Some say it is, some say it isn't, to sort of check which students are talking, which students are being quiet. Whereas when you're using it through a webcam, it might be a little bit difficult. So when you're planning, you've got to have a focus on tech to keep the students engaged, to keep the students speaking. There's also a bit more of an unpredictable environment. For example, you might lose the Wi-Fi. The student might lose the Wi-Fi. There might be some sort of device problems. You know, your computer. I was once doing a lesson and I had that dreaded 1 minute countdown that came up in the corner saying my computer was about to reboot. So I tried to dismiss it, but I clicked on the wrong thing and it restarted and installed. I lost my students for that hour. So there are device problems you have. There are Wi-Fi problems that you can have. It's an unpredictable environment. Now, saying that, I've taught in countries where I once had a fire in the school that I was working. That was quite unpredictable. I've also taught in countries where there's been earthquakes whilst teaching. So again, this can be a bit unpredictable. But generally, the unpredictability of, I think, online tends to be more, okay, the higher. The students are remote. So sometimes interaction can be a bit more difficult. If you've got a student right there, you want to sort of speak to them a bit quietly. You know, you could take them to one side, you could get down on their level, you could sort of just catch them eye to eye. Whereas if you've got maybe 6 students looking at you on a screen, interacting with one can be a bit more difficult. So you've got to plan ways to do this. You also need to plan the tech. If you are doing face-to-face teaching, you've got a piece of paper generally, or a textbook, something like that. There are other materials as well, but that's generally a lot of the materials. Whereas if you're going online, you've also got to plan how to use the technology. So you've got to plan what you're going to do here, what you can do there, and also you're going to plan what's going to happen if there are any sort of mistakes or any sort of problems. Now, but how are online and face-to-face the same? So you're still looking for high student talking time and low teacher talking time. That means you're wanting the students to talk a lot in the classes. And we know from working on Zoom that if you're speaking over each other, this can be difficult. There's also, I've observed lessons where there sometimes is a teacher that is talking too much because they sort of feel that they need to talk, and it sort of almost turns into a lecture instead of a English lesson. So the principles of high student talking time and low teacher talking time are the same. There is still an emphasis on pair and group work. It's not a lecture. You're looking for students to do pair work. You're looking for students to do group work. Okay. The principles of lesson stages are the same. For example, if you're doing a PPP grammar lesson, you're looking for a warmer, you're looking for some sort of presentation, you're looking for a control practice, you're looking for a free practice. The stages that you would do face-to-face are the same as you would do online. The syllabus is similar. If you go teach kids, there's lots of vocabulary teaching. If you're going to teach adults, then there might be a focus on skills. There might be a focus on grammar, whatever it might be. The syllabuses are generally similar. And the materials used are the same. Now, what do I mean by that? It means you're still using authentic materials. So, you can still use the listenings that you'd play in a face-to-face class, you could play in an online class. A reading that you find, nowadays, a lot of readings that you use in the face-to-face class start off on the internet. You could use those in the face-to-face class. You can also use them on online classes. Just they are adapted, these materials, to the tech situation that you are in. Okay. Right. So let me talk a little bit more about how to actually plan an online lesson. Right. First of all, you've got to plan what tools you're going to use. Now, I've done live webinars. So on the YouTube channel, have a search for this. For like an online toolkit is what I called it. And basically that goes through lots of different tools that you can use online. Okay. So, you've got to plan what tool you're going to use to teach online. Now, if you go work for a company, sometimes they will tell you what tools to use. If you're going to go be freelance, get your own students, or if the school doesn't care, you've still got to plan what sort of platform you're going to use. Now, common ones are things like Zoom, Teams. There are more. Google have their own, that kind of thing. You could, use Microsoft. They have some as well. So, there's different ones to use. Something to be aware of is it's got to be something that you can use, and it's got to be something that the student can use. All right. What sort of interactive tools are you maybe going to use? So something like Kahoot, Quilt, or Padlet. Have a look at those, and they're good for sort of quizzes and things like that. How are you going to share the content? Are you going to use Google Docs? Are you going to use Canva? Now, I've never used Canva for content sharing. I've created stuff on Canva, but I've never used it for content sharing. If you have, do let us know. The teacher needs to test these. Part of the thing is you can't just sort of say, right, I'm going to use Zoom and then just leave it at that. You've really got to test that Zoom does what you want it to do. It probably does, but you've got to make sure it does. And you've also got to make sure the students can access this Zoom. So, can they access it as a guest? Do they need an email address? That kind of thing. Now, if you're teaching kids, a lot of kids don't have an email address. Some do, some don't. This sort of thing you've got to be aware of. You also need to plan the instructions for each of these students. So if you're going to use Kahoot, imagine you're the student and you want someone to tell you how to use Kahoot. You need to plan the instructions. So you need to say to them, right, go to this website, you register here. Now, there are different ways to do this. I'm going to talk a little bit in a bit about some problems that come up. But some things to be aware of is that sometimes the look that a teacher has on Kahoot or Quilt or Padlet is different from the look that the student has. So you might think it looks one way, then all of a sudden the students are doing it and it looks differently. You've got to sort of look at it as through student eyes, and you've got to plan what you're going to say to instruct them. Now, obviously, in a face-to-face lesson, we're teaching grammar. We need to plan what we're going to say for our instructions for a controlled practice or a freer practice. But online, you would also need to talk about how to plan the instructions that you're going to tell them. Okay. Right. Then you integrate this tech that you've chosen into your plan. So where and how to use it in each phase. So, for example, you think you're going to have a warmer. Perfect. You know, most lessons start with warmer. Great. Think, right, what am I going to use for the warmer? Do you know what? I'm going to use a chat box. I'm going to put a question in the chat box. I'm then going to give them a couple of minutes to think about it, to discuss it in pairs. Then they come back to me. They write their answers in the chat box. Fine. You've planned the warmer. You've also planned the chat box. You would need to plan the instructions that you're going to do, but there you go. Then you think, right, I'm going to do some sort of control practice, some sort of free practice. For this, I'm going to put them into breakout rooms. Okay, so I need to check how I do on Zoom breakout rooms. I also think, right, how are they going to type it in? Do you know what? We're going to use Google Documents. I'm going to send them a link. They're going to click on that link. The instructions are going to be written at the top. Hopefully that will help them, and then they can write in the answers, something like that. When are you going to do it? Are you going to give them a time to speak about it before they enter it into the Google Docs, or are you going to make the Google Docs read only? This kind of thing, you got to think and work out how you want to do it and where. Then production. What are you going to use? You could use something like Jamboard, which is like an interactive whiteboard. You could use the whiteboard within Zoom to keep it easy. But you're going to think, right, okay, I'm going to put the task up on a shared document, or I'm going to put the task up on a shared screen, and then they're going to do this task on a whiteboard where they can all click on it, they can move things, whatever it might be. So basically the lesson plan would be the same, but you'd probably have like another 1 or 2 columns showing what tech you're going to do and showing how you're going to use it. Now, try to use the same tool in a lesson. When I started teaching online, I thought, okay, I'll be a bit flashy. I'll throw this bit in, and then the students will like it if I throw this tool in, and then I'll throw a bit of that in. It confuses students. It also confuses you. Now, I've got a lovely big monitor here. I've got a monitor here where I can open lots of different windows. I can quite easily copy and paste everything I need to do. Students tend to not have that. Sometimes, unfortunately, the students are using this. This is really, really difficult if there's lots of different tools and you're using, right, if you're saying to them, right, now let's go to the Google Doc, right, great, now let's go to Jamboard, it can be tricky. Keeping it all within one tool quite often helps it come up on the screen a bit more easily. It also means that the students don't have to learn so many different tools. So try to use one tool that can use it all. Doesn't happen sometimes, but it can often happen like that. Try and keep it simple and try and keep it purposeful. Now, what do I mean by purposeful? I mean that it's actually being used for a reason that's worth learning a language, that's helping them to learn a language, not just something that you're throwing in because you want to be flashy and you think they'll like the look of it. The simplest online lessons, I believe, are the best ones from the ones I've seen. Right, so then you need to do a plan for tech issues. So this could be in like a paragraph underneath, or it could be another column that you've written, another row on your lesson plan if you're doing it on a sort of table type lesson plan. Right. What will you do if the students or your Wi-Fi fails? Okay, this is quite a common problem. You know, you're teaching people around the world. Quite often their Wi-Fi might not be as great as yours. Now, sometimes it is quite good. Sometimes you live in a place where the Wi-Fi is bad. What will you do? So, for example, I've seen some students some teachers where they have the WhatsApp numbers of all of the students that are in their class. If it fails, their Wi-Fi fails, to say, okay, right, everyone, right, if your Wi-Fi fails, just phone in on this, start a video call, sorry, on this WhatsApp. All right. Or if mine fails, right, we'll start a video on this one. And then I've seen people hold it up to the screen and this kind of thing. And then in the meantime, the student's trying to work out their Wi-Fi. Or can you continue the lesson via email? For example, obviously you can't do a live lesson, but could you send them the materials that way? Could you send them some links? And then you can combine WhatsApp and you can combine email. I've seen it happen. It works really well. Now, what are you going to do if you have a class of 8 and just 1 fails? You can't sort of stop teaching 7 and start setting up the WhatsApp and the email for another. Maybe try and think about it beforehand. Can you send it out beforehand? Or you just say to me, if your Wi-Fi fails, don't tell me, just you automatically do this, do this, do this. Then we're back up going, the lessons going. What will you do if the students forget their passwords? Happens quite a lot. You've got them set up on some sort of tool and that tool needs them to log in. Teacher, I forgot my password. Teacher, I don't have access to my email. I can't reset my password. Teacher, help me. Well, meanwhile, you're trying to teach the present continuous. Right. Work this out. Can they log in as a guest? Okay. If they can, perfect. That works really well. Sometimes they don't. But quite often you can send a link for a Google document. They don't need to log in. Depends on sometimes the settings that you set up. Can you screen share? If they can't do it themselves, they might not be able to type into the document, but can you just get the document up on your screen so they can see? That kind of thing can really work. Make sure you have a plan. What will you do if they don't know the new software? So you've sent them you've got them to do this new software. You think it's going to be really easy to use. All of a sudden, the students have no idea what to do. Have you thought about sending out the instructions beforehand? Quite often on YouTube, there's already a teacher or someone that's made a video on how to use Teams from a student's perspective. Can you send that out beforehand? I've also seen teachers that have like instructions in Mandarin and they hold them up at the screen. So for example, you're on mute. Teacher, blah, 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 blah. You're still on mute. Teacher, they're chatting away. You've got no idea what to say. So you hold up something, you are on mute in Mandarin. And then there's like a little image and there's a button to push. I've seen that happen before. Works really, really well. So the tech that you plan would depend on what tech you're using and depend on sort of how crucial it is to your lesson. But you need to sort of plan it. Right. Next, you sort of plan in the interaction between you and the students. So when will you use breakout rooms? At what stages will you use breakout rooms and how will you use them? Will you put them in, put them in 3s? Will you put them in 4s? Depends on the numbers. We put them in 2s. What will you do if you have an odd number? Who will be partners? So quite often on something like Zoom, you can flick the who's in each room. You can do that quite easily. That works pretty well. And you could sort of plan, right, okay, that one's quiet, that one's loud, let's put them together. Or that's a really confident boy, let's maybe not put him with a really shy girl, that kind of thing. Plan who it will be. Can you assign, to help like the students getting speaking, can you assign roles? I've used this in online classes quite a bit. So sometimes you put them into breakout rooms and they're still too shy to talk in breakout rooms. Whereas what you can do is say, right, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. And you could, let's say, Abdul, you are going to be the note taker. You're going to partake and you're going to talk to Imran and Ahmed, but you are going to write down the notes. And then you're going to, when we come back to the main room, you're the one that's going to speak about what you discussed. Or if you've got a really quiet class that aren't speaking too much, you can say, right, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. G, you're going to talk first. Okay. Then you're going to ask questions, that kind of thing. Plan that sort of thing, because online classes, it can be a bit easier for them to hide than face-to-face classes. Not something I do, but I've seen people use emojis to show that they are understanding, to show that if they've got any problems or they don't understand, that kind of thing. Also reactions, things like thumbs up. I've seen teachers use those really, really well. I prefer good old fashioned just concept check-in, but I've also seen it work the other way. You can also do polls to show that they've got understanding, or to show the correct answer after they've discussed it in pairs, that kind of thing. It can be a little bit easier than having sort of 8 students in front of you and 4 are trying to speak at the same time. Right, just before I carry on, please, if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat. For sure, I can see a couple already that have come in that are great. The more questions we've got on, the more I'll be able to answer. Right, obviously plan the timings. You do this in a face-to-face class, you'll also do it in an online class. So think in your timings, how long is it going to take you to put them into the right rooms? I'm sure we've all been in Zoom lessons or Zoom conferences or Zoom lectures where you've been put into a breakout room and the person presenting doesn't really know how to do it. You know, just if you've planned it yourself, you can think, right, okay, that's only going to take me 10 seconds. Or do you know what? Sending that link and then getting into the chat box might take me 20, 30 seconds. Plan it. If you've planned the time, quite often you feel a bit calmer when you have to actually do it. Because if you think, right, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, it's got to do this, it's going to take me 30 seconds. And then you start doing it and you get a bit panicked because you can see these people looking at you through your screen. You're not sure you're clicking on the right thing. But if you say in your plan, right, I know that's going to take me 30 seconds. You sort of say, okay, students, give me 30 seconds. I will do this, blah, blah, blah. And then you're sorting it out. You know, plan the time as a presentation. Now, it depends how long the lesson is going to be. It could be 5, 10 minutes, whatever it might be. Plan it and then do the interactive whiteboard. Practice. You know, are you going to put it in threes in breakout rooms? How long are you going to give them? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? What they're going to do when they come back? Production, the shared Google Doc. How long do you think that's going to take for them to set it up to go into? All right. You know, that kind of thing. Just make sure that you plan the timing. You finish and your homework, is that going to take you 5 minutes at the end? How are you going to do that? You're going to do it with a survey, and then you're going to send out the assignment on Google Classroom. You're going to show them how it works. Plan each thing, each minute, how long it's going to take. Right, some final tips before we get to your questions. It's always good to have clear instructions. Whether you're handing out a form or whether you're teaching online, plan your instructions. Now, when you're face-to-face, if you've got quite a complicated task to set up, you can hold your instructions in your hands and read them out. You can. I don't think that's great, but you can do that. Right? I've seen teachers do that face-to-face. I don't think it's very natural. However, if you're online, you know, if you've got a complicated task or you're setting something up for the first time, or you really want to make sure that you have good clarity, in the corner of your screen, have a little Microsoft Word document open or something like that, and actually write down instructions. It can be sometimes could be easier to read on a screen and look at the webcam than it is to hold a piece of paper and read out it face to face. So I think it's okay online, especially the first few times you're doing it, to read out the instructions on how to do something. And I think you can do it a bit more naturally than you can when you're face to face. Also, concept check. You know, use a poll or an emoji to show that they've understand, or pick on someone to tell you what they've got to do. Yeah. The other thing to do is you can put the instructions up on the screen on like a PowerPoint, something like I'm doing now. You could have the instructions up there with some images. If you're face to face, you could also do it on a projector. But you know that is something that you can do. Don't have the students constantly just looking at you. Make sure that you have visual support. Now, with kids' lessons, you can have a whiteboard there. You can pin things up on a board. You can draw on things. You know, plenty of teachers do that to really good effect. You know, using realia, like, you know, holding up things and all that kind of thing, works really well. You can also have you can also share screens quite effectively. I have 3 monitors now, and I think it works really well. Everything that you can see here is coming out on another monitor. Like, you drag things in, you throw things in. I think it can work. It works really, really well. Right. When you first meet your students, over plan. Okay. So have lots of different activities. It can work really, really well. And you don't know the level of your tech students. Things that you might think takes a minute to do, they might do it in 10 seconds. They might have already done it with another teacher. Okay. It's quite easy. Make sure that you over plan, not under plan your first few lessons. Once you met them a few times, you know how long things are going to take. But when you first do it, definitely over plan. Think about, can you record the lessons? Now, if you're going to go work for a company, then they will tell you whether they can record it or not. If you're doing your own lessons for your own students, you probably can record them. Yeah. But you've also got to think, where's that file going to go? If a student is absent and you send them the lesson, can they then send it to other people and say, look at what this student said in another lesson, ha ha ha, what an idiot? Can cause problems, especially with kids. But just think about whether you can record the lessons for absent students, because that can help. It can also help you if you've had a bad lesson to see what you did wrong. Stay calm with any tech problems. You will have tech problems. The students will have tech problems. If you've planned it right, then it's not going to be an issue. Okay. Try and stay calm. Right. Thank you, everyone. Some great questions. David, hi. Idiot proof. Right. So it's a good question. I think generally the best video conferencing software is something like Zoom, where it's not just, because there are other things you can do in Zoom, but at its most basic, it's you and the students talking. Okay. And I do 95% of my lessons through that. Okay. In fact, the only online lessons I don't do through Zoom are the ones where someone else is employing me. Yeah. And they're like, you must use Microsoft Teams or you must use Google Classroom. I think Zoom works pretty well. I also think that not all, but most students are pretty good with Zoom. They sort of know how it works. They've sort of seen how it works. You can also, there's quite a lot of videos. I mean, there's lots of videos for Google Classroom and Teams and that kind of thing, but there's quite a lot of videos on YouTube showing you how to do things with Zoom. I'm not sponsored by Zoom or anything like that. I've also been to some of the live tech helps you can get for free on Zoom. Okay. And you sort of say to them, I want to do this. Can you show me how you do this? And, someone in America generally tells you, yes, this is how you do it. So I think Zoom's pretty good. Especially, I think, if you're only going to have the students for a few lessons. If you are going to have them for a term, or you're going to have them for, let's say 10 lessons, I think using something like Google Classroom, using something like Microsoft Teams, where you can sort of store files, it's like a learning management system. You can drop sort of assignments in, you can get them to mark stuff on that. And it's all within one piece of software, I think works pretty well. Yeah. But generally, idiot proof, I think Zoom, right? Please, if you agree or disagree, please do put that in the chat. Dursey, I hope I'm saying your name right. Sorry if I haven't. How to teach students who are not cut out for online lessons. Yeah. You also find students that aren't cut out for face-to-face lessons. That's what I would say. Yes, I've had this before, where students think that they are ready for online lessons. They think online lessons are going to be great. They think online lessons are going to work for them. And they just think it's going to be more like a lecture, and they don't really get involved. Now, I have spoken to these students outside of the lesson before. I've sort of said to them, look, can we have a 10-minute talk before or after? It depends on their age. if they're kids, then I think, you know, I think you're okay to talk to their parents, or maybe send their parents an email if English isn't their first language and it's translated. Right. It's a tough one. If you're working for a company, hopefully they will be able to help you with this. But I think sometimes with students, they don't really get online lessons for the first few times, and then eventually it sort of clicks. So don't ever, and I'm not saying you will, but don't ever give up on them. Don't ever think, right, they're just not cut out for this. But I think breakout rooms, pairing them with people who are helpful, who are useful, not pairing them with an idiot, can really help. And I think having a little chat with them about what's expected from online classes, I think, is also useful. I hope that helped, Darcy. Yes, David. Right. Do you find that students sometimes ignore the pre-lesson tasks and don't prepare for the lesson at all? Yeah, but again, this happens in face-to-face. This isn't necessarily an online thing. Now, you need to plan what will happen in this case. If it's absolutely crucial for the running of your lesson that they do this pre-lesson task, I would say you've got to sort of think how actually important that one is. Is that something you should be doing in class? Okay. Now, if it's just something that, you know, like to pre-teach a bit of vocabulary, something like that, you know, pairing them with another student can sort of help this. Now, again, if this is a student that's one-on-one with you, or someone that you found yourself, I think you can adapt to go down that route. Now, if you're teaching a class and one of them is continuously doing it and not one of them is continuously not doing it, I think having a word with them to the side is fine. Or talking to your boss if you're going to work for a company and just say, look, this student isn't doing this. But I think you need to find out why they're not doing it. It could be that they're not receiving the emails. Their emails are in their spam. The emails are in their junk. If they are just apologetic that they haven't done it, then you need to work out a way of getting around it, either through a stern talking to, after a friendly talking to, or through the way you're planning your lessons. Yeah. Hi, Heather. Games can make a lesson more interesting. Games are crucial for all ages. How would I play a game in an online class? Right. So totally depends on the game. Yeah. I've never found a game that I use in a face-to-face class that I've not been able to use online. So you got to think, if you're playing a face-to-face class, and if you type into Google EFL, ESL games for present continuous, you will find loads. All right. And they'll be aimed at face-to-face. But let's say it's something like charades, yeah, where they have to mime something. And in a face-to-face lesson, you might have like the piece of paper and you fold it up and you give it to them. In an online lesson, you can send them a private message where only them see it, right? This is what you're going to act out. If it is some sort of game that's different, where they have to write stuff on a whiteboard, you know, or run to the board where they have to slap the answer, or they have to slap the picture, something where you're using a whiteboard, you can 100% do any of those games using an online whiteboard. So, you know, you could put some pictures up and you have to say, right, first person to click on the cow. And they click on the cow with their mouse, or if they're using a tablet, they touch it on the screen. That'll come up on your screen. You'll be able to see who did it first. You'll be able to see who's got it right, all that kind of thing. If it's something like some sort of fill in the blanks, again, you can copy and paste, have it prepared into an online whiteboard. They just write in the letters, that kind of thing. There's loads in particular. If you've got a game that you really want to play, Heather, put it in the chat and I will think on my feet and try and work out a way of doing that online if I know the game. Okay. Hello, LinkedIn user. It's just for newly TEFL certified, no teaching experience, looking to begin online. Is the best option working with organizations that provide lessons? I would say so. Yeah, right. I always say to people that are working online, that want to teaching online, I think the very first thing to do is to go work for a company instead of finding your own students. And there's a few reasons for this. One, if you're newly certified, it can take a long time to plan lessons. It can take a long time to make materials. If you go work for a company, quite often they have their own materials. Quite often they have their own lesson plans. You can take them. You're ready to go. You haven't got loads of time to do that. You're saving a lot of time. You're also generally, not always, but generally guaranteed students. You also know what times you're going to be working. So I think that's the best way. What you need to also be doing, if you think your career as an EFL teacher is going to be online only, you also need to be finding your own students, because they're the ones that pay better. And you will find that a lot of jobs, especially entry-level online jobs, don't pay that well. Okay. So I'm going to go back a little bit. I also say, don't give up your day job to be an online teacher. First of all, okay, use it as a sideline or a side hustle. Do it at weekends, do it in the evenings when your time off. Okay, it depends on your time zone, but go work for a company, see if you like it, see if it's the sort of thing for you, and just see if that works. But if you then find that, yes, you want to be an online teacher, you are loving it, you've got to find your own students, because they tend to pay more, tend to be more fun, tend to be a bit more interesting, and it tends to be a little bit more reliable as you get through it. But you will not get a full calendar of students quickly. It takes time. You've got to learn marketing. You've got to set up all your email lists. You've got to set up all your social media groups, all that kind of thing. And there's a lot of people doing it. You've got to find a niche. I've done webinars about this. And you've got to target your advertising, that kind of thing. Do that alongside working for a company. It takes time. Okay. Hope that answered your question, LinkedIn user. Gerchi. Yeah, Dirchi. So Dirchi, thank you for correcting my pronunciation of your name. I probably even then said it wrong, didn't I? I really apologize. I think that's all the questions, which is useful, unless there's any more. It doesn't have to be about online lessons. There were some really good questions. I really like the idiot proof one as well. And also how to make games more useful. Look, thank you for tuning in. You can watch any of these videos that we do, and we've done probably hundreds now, on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page, on our LinkedIn page. Okay. So if you go on YouTube, go on to TEFL Org, find it, put that in the search, you'll see my face a lot of the way down. You'll also see videos, thumbnails of the headings. See if you can find ones that you like, go back and watch them. If you want to get in contact with us, go on our website or go on our Facebook group. I monitor the Facebook group, and we can answer any questions you might have on that. Okay. Online lessons are still growing. Before COVID, when I was an online teacher, I'd get a lot of, "Oh, you're an online teacher." Face to face is obviously better, isn't it? Then all of a sudden the world got locked down, and I had people that had previously said to me, online lessons, "Oh, no, I could never do that. No, it's not traditional teaching." Flocking to me, asking me how they could be online teachers. And I didn't really help them at that time, because I all of a sudden was making more money than I'd ever made online. And online is still growing because students are more aware of it. Students are happy with it because they had those sort of 2 or 3 years, or they know someone that's done it, or they've seen their kids doing it, or their work went online. They realize that online teaching and online lessons work. It's growing. You can 100% do it alongside face-to-face work. You can also do it, as a digital nomad. That always sounds so exotic to me, but you can do it alongside that. There's lots and lots of opportunities for online work. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let us know in the comments if you did enjoy it or you didn't enjoy it. It was great to spend some time with you for the last 40 minutes. Have a good day. Have a good morning. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.